Left! Ah! God bless America.
What happens when a man named Thunder joins forces with the studio that made Sunday School Musical? Sharknado happens. In 2013, the Sci-Fi Channel aired the first Sharknado movie. It was met with a response of, well, it got a 3 out of 10 stars on IMDb. Needless to say, it was a bad movie, and yet somehow it was also amazing. It was so bad it's good. And just like all So Bad It's Good movies, it's mostly stupid, pretty boring, but it also has a few scenes that are just magical. Sharknado was a phenomenon, but did you know that there are actually 5 of them? Every year on Shark Week, my family gathers around the TV to watch the newest Sharknado movie, and I gotta say, they just get better and better each time. While this is great for the Sci-Fi Channel, it's also weird. Most So Bad It's Good movies are lightning in a bottle. They can never be made on purpose, and their creators can almost never do the same thing twice. Making something intentionally bad is practically impossible. To even attempt this almost always ends up being embarrassing, but Sharknado has managed to actually improve every single time. How did they do it? How have they done the impossible every single year? What makes a movie so bad it's good? And what makes Sharknado so special? To answer that, we'll need to put these movies into perspective. So Bad It's Good applies to many films, but the most famous example has to be The Room.
You are lying. I never hit you. You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Released in 2003, The Room is the one and only film made by Tommy Wiseau. It was his passion project, and it clearly meant a lot to him. Unfortunately, this movie is also very bad.
Hi.
Can I help you?
Yeah, can I have a dozen red roses, please?
Oh, hi, Johnny. I didn't know it was you. Here you go.
That's me. How much is it?
It'll be $18.
Here you go. Keep the change. Hi, doggy.
You're my favorite customer.
Just look at this scene. The sound mixing is absolutely awful. It's obviously dubbed over, but the timing is so bad that the characters are talking over each other. Apart from the sound mixing, the writing and acting are probably the biggest problems with this movie. The pacing is awful, and the directing does nothing with the camera other than make sure it sees exactly what it needs to see. This movie makes so many weird and wrong choices on so many levels that it's, well, funny. We can't really empathize with the characters because they don't act like real people, so we laugh at them. I mean, do you really have a choice when you see scenes like this?
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
The Room is the most famous So Bad It's Good movie, but it doesn't represent them all. After all, The Room had a budget of $6 million. Tommy was not a good director, but he had money. No one knows where it came from, but he sure did have it. This sets it apart though, because most So Bad It's Good films are made with a budget of almost nothing. Let me give you an example of a movie with a budget of only $10,000. This may seem like a lot, but for a movie, well, this is what it gets you.
I think they're eagles. What's going on?
This is Birdemic. Don't you wanna forget? Don't you wanna regret? Who will survive?
Birdemic Shock and Terror. In 2009, James Nguyen gave this masterpiece to the world. This cautionary tale about the dangers of global warming features some of the worst acting, worst pacing, and worst special effects ever put to film.
Shit, here they come!
Let's look at a few of the shots in this movie. What do the camera angles, lighting, and acting say about the characters and themes of this movie? Well, they all have one thing in common. They're all the wrongest possible choice for any director to make. Look at this shot. Why is there so much headroom? And the lighting, you can barely see what's going on. This scene is the first time you hear any character speak in the movie. That definitely hurt my ears, but all of these problems are pretty minor and honestly kinda funny. No, this movie's real sin is its pacing. In a movie called Birdemic Shock and Terror, one might expect it to be, how did he put it?
Crows and seagulls also cause an...
Yeah, a romantic thriller. A movie filled with drama and action and birds. Where are the birds? You have to sit through a solid 45 minutes of this guy slowly driving from one location to another before you even see any birds. So why then do people like this movie? Well, it's because once you've sat through the endurance test of this movie's first half, you are rewarded with this movie's second half. The transition from bad romance to bad thriller is non-existent. This scene just sorta shows up halfway through the movie. Once it happens though, Birdemic gets a lot more fun to watch. You still have to sit through a lot of boring, but you also get scenes like this. An interesting thing about Birdemic is that it was clearly inspired by a much more well-made film, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Creator of Psycho, Vertigo, North by Northwest, and so many more, Alfred Hitchcock isn't a good director, he's a genius director. He's a master of building tension in all his films, and The Birds is no different. One difference between these movies is that in The Birds, birds start swarming like locusts and attacking people for no apparent reason. It's never explained, and that makes it all the more terrifying. In Birdemic, they just go on and on about how climate change is causing birds to do this. Climate change is making birds attack us. It's not even remotely scary, it's just annoying. Another example is that in The Birds, there's no soundtrack, no music in any scenes. However, the sound design is so perfect that the movie has an eerie silence to it, a feeling of tension and uneasiness throughout the film. In Birdemic, the soundtrack is sometimes there and sometimes not, and its sound mixing is so awful that it just feels poorly made. On top of that, the characters once again don't feel like people. The editing makes all the dialogue scenes feel awkward, and the special effects honestly speak for themselves. This movie is so poorly made that it's hard to believe it's even real. It leaves you no choice but to laugh at the absurdity. It makes it fun to watch. Unlike The Room, though, this movie has a sequel. Birdemic 2: The Resurrection. Unfortunately, James Nguyen seems to have seen the reviews people made, and in trying to recapture the first one's magic, he just started copying himself. Now that the bad filmmaking is so clearly intentional, the movie isn't funny, it's just bad. However, these movies are still more well-made than others, but to find them, we'll have to go deeper. I've had to dig pretty deep to find a movie worse than Birdemic, but I think I'm onto something. My god, can it be? I was looking for something bad, but this is magnificent! Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, The Breen.
The cleanse has begun. I can move from one time plane to another. I have taken on this human body in order to communicate with the humans. I can manipulate the planes of space and time. Lead a revolt against the politicians, the corruption, and the injustices that we all know. The primitive humans must continue the cleanse in order to survive as a species.
This right here is the Holy Trinity. Double Down, I Am Here, Now, and Fateful Findings. These movies are the result of one man, Neil Breen. Neil Breen is like if Tommy Wiseau didn't have money. He likes making what he thinks are serious artistic films, but there's one problem.
How could you have done this? Jim! I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide? I can't help you out of this one, Jim. With all we've been through, I can't pull you out of this one.
Yeah, these movies are so poorly made that you kinda can't watch them without laughing. They have all the same problems as the last two movies, only 1,000,000 times worse. Neil Breen might actually be a worse actor than Tommy Wiseau, and instead of using clip art birds, he uses special effects that I could make using iMovie's iPad app. I know because I did when I was 12. His editing leaves a lot of awkward pauses in the dialogue, his effects are laughable, and his writing is ridiculous. But his movies take themselves so seriously. Look at this. He's Cyber Jesus surrounded by baby heads. Let me tell you, this right here is true art. But I won't go any deeper into these films because they need to be experienced firsthand. Instead, let's go back to Sharknado, more specifically at the people who made it. Let me introduce you to The Asylum. Before Sharknado, The Asylum made movies. Fake movies. Every time a big Hollywood blockbuster would be announced, they'd start making their own movie that was meant to be almost identical to it. Creators of Sunday School Musical, Snakes on a Train, Nazis at the Center of the Earth, and so much more. The Asylum had specialized in rushing out mockbusters to trick people into buying their movies instead of the real ones they were looking for. At the end of the day, it worked out pretty well for them. After all, they've never lost money on a film. But at this point, you might be wondering how good these mockbusters actually are. If you're expecting the kinds of things you see in the posters and trailers, you'll unfortunately be disappointed. Let's take a look at Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes.
He is Sherlock Holmes.
Come, Watson. Onwards?
Backwards. So you still don't believe in monsters?
A movie whose poster makes me very happy. I mean, just look at this thing. A T-Rex, a sea monster, a dragon? This looks like a perfect example of something that's so bad it's good. But sadly, while these things are technically in the movie, they're few and far between. Most of the movie's just boring, made as cheaply as possible so that they can rush out the movie and release it at the same time as the one being copied. It's not so bad it's good, it's just bad. However, in the late 2000s, things started to change. Instead of making boring knockoff movies, The Asylum started making boring original movies. In 2009, they released Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus. In this movie, a giant prehistoric shark is released from the melting ice caps and starts terrorizing the world. However, it wasn't the only thing frozen in the ice. Along with the Mega Shark, a giant octopus was released. The rest of the movie is about trying to make them fight. Now, this movie's mostly just boring, but whenever the monsters are on screen, it gets fun. However, just like the rest of these movies, those scenes are few and far between. After The Asylum made 2 more Mega Shark movies, they began working on their next project, Sharknado. Sharknado was different. Even for The Asylum, the idea was ridiculous, and unlike their previous works, the movie was actually what you'd expect from its trailer. The fun parts of the movie aren't few and far between. Once the Sharknado shows up, they're almost constant. This makes the movie really fun to watch, especially with friends, and each sequel just gets crazier. Let me explain what I mean. See, Sharknado 1 ends with the main character, Finn, blowing up the Sharknado with a bomb. Now that's pretty ridiculous, but in Sharknado 5, the movie ends with Finn using an ancient shark amulet to kill a magic teleporting Sharknado and destroying the entire world in the process, only to meet his son Gil from the future, and then the movie ends with them time traveling in a flying Hummer. That's awesome! But it's not the only thing that sets Sharknado apart. Most So Bad It's Good movies are entertaining because of how poorly made they are. All three of these movies have bad sound design, bad editing, bad directing, and awful acting. The effects of the Sharknado films were fine at the start and honestly just keep improving. The sound design has nothing wrong with it, and the acting, well, it depends on who you're talking about.
How can they survive at sea? How can they survive in a tornado?
My point is that these films aren't funny because of how they were made. They're funny because of the writing. Here's the thing though. Saying the writing is funny usually means the dialogue is funny, but in Sharknado that isn't the case. The characters don't make jokes. These movies are funny because despite how silly the movie is, the characters take things very seriously. It's almost the exact opposite of what Neil Breen does. What this means is that the movies aren't funny on accident. They're genuinely funny. For example, we can see that Birdemic's terrible effects are what made it special. Without them, the movie would just be boring. If Sharknado had better special effects, the movie would still be just as fun. I know this is true because the Sharknado sequels have higher and higher budgets and, as previously stated, the movies just improve. And they stand out from So Bad It's Good movies because they're competently made and have an entire movie studio involved in making them. When you watch these movies, you're not laughing at the filmmakers, you're laughing with them. If you told the writer, Thunder Levin, that these movies are bad, he'd laugh and tell you that they're called Sharknado. What did you expect? These movies know exactly what they are, and that's what makes them special. They're not bad on accident. They're bad on purpose.